Hello everybody, it's DuckFaden07 with another video, again playing Zoo Rhinos, General Rokiric. Turned out to be a very good creature in the Rhinos base. And I've played this list in the past, trophied with Territorial Cow in Rhinos multiple times, but now I added General Ferris Rokiric, and General just fitted perfectly into this archetype, into this deck, especially together with Territorial Cow. So idea of this deck is casting General Ferris Rokiric on turn 3. Then after casting General Ferris Rokiric, playing your cascade spells like Bloodbraid Elf, Shardless Agent, Violent Outburst, Ardent Plea. And then in those situations when you have General Ferris Rokiric, it's actually better to hit Kavu of your cascade spell than it is to hit Crashing Footfalls. If you hit Kavu, you get one more Golem token and get 5/5 Kavu. 5/5 Kavu. If you hit Crashing Footfalls, you get just two Rhino tokens. Okay, so it's good. It's very good either way, but it's a tech that makes Territorial Kavu better overall in this entire archetype, because a lot of these games you are going to go for the General Ferris Rokiric on turn 3 anyway, so playing Kavu in your deck isn't any liability, it's advantage in most situations, and you get to play more of these cascade spells as you get more cascade targets in even in game 1, and you will see just how long and good this deck grind, and that's it. You can see my previous video on my channel for more explanations about sideboard inclusions, stuff like that. Sideboard is pretty simple, no space for force of negation in the main. When we are siding force of negations, we have to take our Bloodbraid Elves out because it's not good to cascade into force of negation. And also when sideboarding the force in, we have to take one monocolor spell out of the deck because we'll have too little multicolor spells for the general. Also, uh, also we have to be careful about blue card count. We don't can't take out really Fire Ices, Shardless, Plias, stuff like that. So we have to be careful with sideboarding. Okay, some more blue cards on the sideboard which can also help with Force. Teferi is often coming in together with Force, so okay, that's it. We'll go to the gameplay video. Other cards on the sideboard are some usual cards, Rhinos usual play, nothing crazy, and mana base that is best fit for playing Shardless Agent and General Ferris Rokiric in the same deck, and that is Xander and Indata. So this league ended up 4-1, but was so close to trophy. You will just have to watch it. And playing first was I'm able to. In this deck also people complained about that in a Scion decks that you're not able to suspend the Crashing Footfalls on turn 1. Here you are able, because you can easily play Territorial Kavu with the 2 shocks on turn 2, and it doesn't interfere with this in any way. So, okay, I was able to go for the suspend on turn 1, suspend on turn 2, and fetch my trial. My opponent is on creativity, I think. Okay, so I get to play my General Ferris Rokiric. Creativity is one of the trickiest matchup because they have Brennan 6 and Teferi, but we are very good post board, and also sometimes even main board, because the deck can be just too aggressive. Like in these situations, if I had the land plus Bloodbraid Elf, I don't even care if they go for Archon, because I'll just have too many creatures on the field. In this situation, I didn't have a land to hold my Leyline Binding, and just not doing anything for this turn would feel kind of bad. So I think I had to go for the Ardent Plea, let them get at the Archon, and then try to go Leyline Binding on Archon, attack them, and make some more tokens. I get these rhinos here too, so a lot of creatures on the board, but still I play Leyland Binding, go for the attacks, but my opponent had their Leyland Binding too, so that was the game. Had to concede there, didn't have a chance after that Leyland Binding. Okay, so game two, I now have Orvars in, and I have four Force of Negation, so I'm lot better in this matchup post board. Orvars are just so strong, and the Force of Negation is very good too when you have these good tempo cards. Okay, I went for Fire Ice is also incredible. My opponent goes for the Triumph, I go Fire Ice in their upkeep. They now can't play their Renin 6 if they have it. Or, I don't know, any 2 mana spell. I go for the Shadow's Agent. I succeed to resolve my footfalls. Have another on suspend coming in for the next 2 turns. I'm attacking for 10 next turn. I have Leyland Binding for their turn 4 attempt of in creativity, so I'm in a pretty good position. Also draw into another Shardless, so I'm able to play the Shardless, resolve another Footfalls, and hold the Leyland Binding for their turn. So in this matchup, you can see the sideboard. I removed General Ferris Rokiric because it's a Renin 6 deck, and you know General can be bad in against the Renin 6, so it is the only matchup where I do this. I think there is no other matchup where I decided to go for this. My opponent has the Dwarf in mind. They go for the treasure token. I have the binding, and that's the game. I have the lethal for the next turn. So we'll go to the final game of match one. I have turn one suspend footfalls plus cow, but I decided to mulligan it. I didn't feel it was good enough. And I kept a hand with the Force of Negation and Orvar, but no Cascade spell. I had the Fire Ice in hand though, so it was a way to get towards that Cascade spell, so I decided to keep it. It was more important here to go for the Fire Ice than play anything, so went for it. Now I play my Kavu, I have a Force of Negation, I have Orvar. I have Orvar, my opponent definitely didn't play around Orvar, so they immediately went for the creativity. Play Archon. I don't know why they used the ley line of my territorial Kavu when they were planning to go ongoing Archon anyway, but they did it, and I just discarded Orvar, get my Archon, drew into some more Force of Negation, so I had a force in case they try to do something. Drew another territorial cow, which I immediately play in case they go for another cow, another Archon. I can sack cow, and that was it. That was the game. Okay, so that was match one against Creativity. We'll now watch a match against player the Iron Wind, which also plays Rhinos, but typical version. Okay, so they're playing first. Started just with Stomping Ground. And I joined the forest and I decided to go for the suspend crashing footfalls. I go for suspend crashing footfalls turn 2 and I draw into another footfalls. Then I decide just to suspend them too. And weirdly enough, my opponent didn't. I think they didn't have Cascade spell on turn 3, and I went for the Shardless Agent and successfully resolved Rhinos number 4. So I had all 4 Rhinos, 1 on the field, and 3 here resolving, and my opponent didn't even have 1. They just killed 2 of my Rhinos on their turn 4, so I was just casually attacking for 2 damage, waiting for my footfalls to resolve. They had the Fury, but I had Fury too, so pretty good situation for me. I resolved my Crashing Footfalls, played my fifth land and played my Fury and their Fury. With two Rhinos resolving next turn, my opponent concedes. That was a very quick game. Just sometimes you just win with suspended Rhinos, I guess. Okay, I had to go for Mulligan on 6 here again. I'm playing second. It's definitely trickier in this Rhinos mirror, but I played good. Uh, I was hoping to draw into another fetch, so my opponent wasn't able to cast a Fire Ice here. And in this way, I gained a turn, so it's like I was playing first actually. I get to Fire Ice them in this situation, and now only thing they can do is Fire Ice me. If they don't have it, I'm in a pretty good situation. So I go for a General Ferris Rokiric, and this card is so powerful in this matchup. So basically, after I resolve a General Ferris Rokiric on empty board in this matchup, my opponent can't really win anymore. It's basically impossible for my opponent to win now. Every spell I cast, I get 2 Golem tokens. It's pretty disgusting. So I cast Shardless Agent, I get Kavu, 2 Golem tokens, and Shardless Agent, plus I have Leyline Binding. And the next turn, I will again get extra token for every card I play, so it's kind of impossible, really. Uh, there's just nothing they can do. And yeah, that's it. They go for the Leyline Binding. I take it before it took out, and my opponent just concedes on the next turn. That was very quick games against 4-color Rhinos. Okay, so this deck has a very good Rhinos matchup, and Rhinos deck is very popular right now. So it's Rhinos, but grindier. So they really can't, and it is maybe even quicker because I have a very good additional turn to play. They have just Fire Ice. I can play Kawu too. Kawu is also very good against Rhinos, but I think this was also Rhinos matchup, and yeah, yeah, it was. I think it was. If I get to resolve the General Ferris Rokiric, it just becomes very hard for the opponent. And I didn't crack my fetches here too, but this hand was really mediocre. Once my opponent cracks the fetch, I decide to resolve my Violent Outburst. Uh, I get to basics just in case my opponent is playing Blood Moon to maybe make them think I'm on Temur. This is game 1. Okay, so I drew into Leyland Binding and sorry, Territorial Cabo. I decide to go for the Binding first. They have the Force. We trade for double Rhinos, and I just play my Cabo. There is all the footfalls from Suspend and another one from the Shardless Agent. I have 2 Furies in hand, but this is not a very good situation for me. I decide to trade with one of the Rhinos. I could stay back, of course, but I just really wanted to loot the card, try to get something that can maybe get me out of this situation. I play one of the Furies, take one Rhino. So they just really need a removal here to finish me, and that was the game. Okay, game 1 against in a match number 3 against the Rhinos again. This time had a weaker hand, flooded a lot, drew into a lot of lands. Didn't have General Ferris Rokiric, but I was playing now first. Have the Fairy, have turn 2 Territorial Cabo, which is 5/5. Works very well against opponents' Rhinos. So very good turn 2 play. I had multiple options here, but often just obviously resolving Teferi is very good, and I just decide to go for it. If they don't have the force, I basically win the game immediately, and they have to use two cards here to deal with my Teferi, and I'm still I have significant board advantage here. I go for the Shardless Agent, find another Kavu. Kavu is very good here, blocking my opponent's Rhinos. They make two crushing footfalls, but my cows are 5/5. In case they go for attack, I know they have another outburst, so uh, I uh, I won't block with both cows definitely in that situation. I decide to go for the cows now to make my ability. I really wanted to find fourth land in this situation. I want to be able to double spell here. So my opponent makes additional two Rhino tokens. And they had the violent outburst. So in this situation, the rhinos are just trading with cows. But I found another land with cow ability, so that was I gained some significant value from my cow before and the other one traded, and I was able to exile one of them, save my other cow, play Ardent Plia, gets my own two rhino tokens. So I was in a pretty good situation, still had two cascade spells in my hand, and decided to go with everything again. I use cow ability again, discard the Fire Ice from my hand. Fire Ice is kind of useless in this situation where I can't double spell, so just ditch it for the Shardless Agent. My opponent finishes cow with a Dead Gone. I make two more Rhino tokens, and my opponent is now out of cards in their hand. They go for the Teferi, but I have too much already on the field, and I kill Teferi and just cast another Shardless into two more Rhino tokens, and my opponent concedes at that point. Okay, so it's time for game number 3 in the match number 3. So playing second. Playing second can be hard, but have Leyland Binding, which is good. I can kill one of their uh, first Rhino tokens. Also get Force of Negation, which is good draw. They go Ice my land, really usual play. I still have Leyland Binding on the one of their Rhinos, but they played tap land, which was very good news for me. So I sack my fetch, find another Chion. I really need the land here. I did get it. I find a breeding pool so I can hardcast my Force of Negation later if needed. I again resolve my General Affairs Rokiric, and once again they have the force, but Teferi, but I have the force. And as you saw before, once I resolve the General Affairs Rokiric, this deck just can't lose this mirror. It's impossible. So I cast my Shardless. I get two Golem tokens. I get Territorial Cow plus Shardless Agent. I have more Cascade spells in hand. Have another Cow. Have another Binding. So it's really impossible to lose this, as I already explained. There's just too much stuff going on. I go for the cow again. Use my ability. I need to get that land. So I did get a land, but not the one I wanted. I play Leyland Binding to save my cow. Then play another cow, get another golem token. Didn't even want to play this tomb. I need white land at this point, so I can need two white to double spell here. My opponent goes for the arcane proxy, but sure, I go for the Teferi here, make it make a token, but my opponent successfully mystical disputes that one. Again, with going with everything, doing two loot abilities, finding Windspear Heat with it, so I can cast my Leyland Binding if needed, and Ardent Plea next turn. So just play with the Heat, it is the land I want in this situation. Find another white source, and now I can double spell and use again my Kawu to loot this land away. I go for the Ardent Plea before attack, because I plan to attack with the General 2. My opponent cascades into Betrayal, but I didn't have anything at this point. Everything is out on the field or in the graveyard. I just had two Kavus of post board in this matchup, so they just get Charles and lose. Even if they get Kavu, they will lose anyway. But yeah, okay, that was match 3 against another Rhinos opponent, and then we'll watch the win first in the last match against Hank the Abyss, playing blue-red Murktide deck. Mulligan on 5 in first game. I kept Fire Ice plus Violent Outburst and 3 lands. Decent. My opponent starts first with Dragon Ray Channeler plus Mishra's Bubble. So I go fetch first, get in that a Triumph. I have the Fury. I have the Fire Ice. So just shock in with Steam Vents. I didn't want to play Fire here in case they have consider maybe they can get Delirium. So I go for the Fire Ice in response to the Expressive Iteration. Kill the Channeler in situation where they can't get the Delirium. They just get a Spiral of Canal here and pass the turn, and with just Spiral of Canal they can't really do anything against the General Ferris Rokiric. And as in the Rhinos matchup, the Murktide matchup also can't do anything when I resolve General Ferris Rokiric on the empty board. Of course, now their only chance is resolving huge Murktides, and the Ledger Shredders maybe try to race me with flyers, but it's very, very hard for them to do this. Okay, so now all my violent outbursts make at least one additional uh, token, but sometimes more. My opponent goes for 2 flyers, which is very good for them in this situation, but I was able to kill the Shredder and play my Bloodbraid Elf. With Bloodbraid Elf, I usually get really huge number of tokens. So I go Bloodbraid Elf into Ardent Plea, into Footfall. So I get 2 Golems and 2 Rhinos, and this means that is this is definitely lethal for next turn. My opponent just can't deal with all of this, and this was mulligan to 5, so pretty good mulligan to 5. And I even attack immediately this turn for 9 damage, and I have 22 damage on the field for the next turn, and my opponent immediately concedes. Okay, so time for game 2. And game 2 can be pretty hard if opponent has early DRC plus Ledger Shredder. They start with the Ragavan. I had the ability to kill Ragavan here immediately with Fury. I didn't feel like it was necessary. Maybe in retrospective, maybe I should have done it. But I decided against it. I just decided to again go for the Fire Ice in combat to see if they have the counter spell. Maybe it's best for them, for me, if they use the counter spell here. And I was hoping for them to using the counter spell and then playing the Ledger Shredder, which actually happened. So my opponent got in with Ragavan, and this is exactly where I wanted them. And they played the Ledger Shredder, and I have Fury in a perfect situation, but unfortunately my opponent now has two treasures to cast the counter spell, so it was, yeah, kind of sad about this, that it didn't work out, and it was definitely part of my plan to do it, but it just didn't work out. So my opponent goes for the Merctide here plus Ledger Shredder. I'm already on 11, so it's definitely not good news. I need another land to double spell next turn, but they also have a channeler for the last card, which is pretty awkward. I have the Kavu and I have the binding for the Murktide, but it just wasn't enough. They top decked Expressive Iteration, which was pretty good top deck considering they had zero cards in hand. So they immediately got the Delirium and put me on 3 life, and I didn't have any more chance. I did have a chance. I resolved the footfalls here, but they had explosives. So I went for a Kawu attack. I discard the outburst. So the only hope to survive in this situation is to play the Bloodblade Elf into Endurance, which I sided in. So I go for the basic, play the Bloodblade Elf, hope to see Endurance. They get the Shredder ability, of course. I tried to find Endurance, didn't get it, and concede at this point. So it was game for the Murktide. Game 3, playing first, much easier. My sideboard plan for this matchup is to take out two Cowls because they play dress down. I still leave two Cowls in because they can be very good and sometimes surprise opponent when they're holding Spell Pierce. I again go for the Suspend on turn 1, play the Xander's Launch turn 2, then have the Fairy Outburst for turn 3, and I'll be able to find my basic. So I am a bit safer against the Blood Moon. I had multiple options here. A lot is happening. I kind of felt like I really need find Leyline Binding here. So I go for the Teferi, bouncing the Ledger Shredder. I can't prevent Shredder from attacking me in any other way, and this felt like a good way to slow things down. Let me find some spell that can buy me some time to make me into more significant advantage. So I got a general next turn, which is one of the spells I was looking for, either Leyline Binding for the Shredder or General Ferris Rokiric. I find the Rokiric, unfortunately can't block this turn, but Ragavan just won't matter uh, after this one turn. My opponent has had a very good hand here. Another Ledger Shredder into Murktide. So a lot of these guys have flying, but you could see in the past games just how strong is this to have resolved General Ferris Rokiric. And you will see just that I was able to raise this. I even resolved footfalls from the suspend. I got the land, which was good, allowed me to triple spell. So I go for Territorial Kavu, give them their Shredder ability. I make one Golem token, I put Territorial Kavu into play, then they're tapped out, of course, so I can play my Violent Outburst, make another Golem token, get the Outburst ability, with the outburst, I hit another cowhide. No, sorry, it was footfalls. I get hit another footfalls and get my all creatures got +1. And since they had two 4 toughness blockers, I decided to attack with my general because I didn't want them to have so many power in flyers because that would mean that one bolt maybe they could find a lethal next turn. So I decided to go for it, and they decided for blocks. I think they I think they shouldn't block there. I think they should be like sorry, Bolt to maybe kill me on the same turn. I go for I find lethal here. I go for fire on Ragavan, and then unfortunately I didn't tap very good and didn't have mana to play binding here, but I had a violent outburst. So it was lethal anyway. Violent Outburst giving +1 to all my creatures. That was lethal, so that was the game. And we'll now see the loss against playing against blue-white control. It was such a terrible loss. My opponent won the game with like 15 seconds on the clock. I didn't go for the clock win. If I went for the clock win, I think I will be able to do it, but I didn't go for the clock win, and I didn't block their Kahira for one turn with General Ferris Rokiric, and that costed me the game. Okay, so my opponent actually had dress downs in the main, which was awful, and also had Charlottes of the Void in the main, so it was just a pretty good choice for my opponent, of course, but also kind of unlucky for me. I had decent hand, but these Furies just ain't that good. In the game 3, it's very important to try to be patient in this matchup. I wasn't that patient in the last match, and that was the reason I lost. I just played the Fury like a 3-3 threat, and that was the reason why I lost the game. If I just saved Fury in my hand, let them play their Solitude, then played my Fury after that, I would win it. But unfortunately, didn't do it that way. I did it the wrong way and I lost the game, yeah. Okay, so my opponent plays the Supreme Verdict, but I play one Bloodbraid Elf and completely rebuild my board state. I go for another attack with Bloodbraid Elf. Unfortunately, they are on 5 mana now, and this Solitude just provides um, so much value for my opponent. I have to go for everything. I use my cow ability, discard cards I don't need in my hand, like this Crashing Footfalls. In the retrospective, if I didn't discard these footfalls here, I would win this game. If I just suspended these footfalls right now, I would win this game. If I just have played my Ardent Plea, I suspended the footfalls, it would be a clean win. So that wasn't a good decision, definitely. It felt like a good decision at the moment to get rid of dead footfalls from my hand. But yeah, wasn't that good in the end. I decided to go for the face with Charles for 3 damage and just use Fury uh, to kill the fairy. This is not such a good strategy in case your opponent has the Solitude, because yeah, they get to kill. They get to kill Solitude for free. I was hoping my opponent is not playing Leyland Binding. I would probably maybe just let them trade Shardless with Solitude if I thought they were playing the Binding, but they had all the basics so far, and Mystigate and Hole. I thought maybe they are not playing it. So I was kind of fine with Leyland Binding the Solitude. It ended up again bad for me because they definitely played the Binding. Okay, they went for Shark Token. I wanted to resolve this 3 damage from Shardless Agent. I decided to binding the token. I have close to the lethal right now, just a Shardless attack plus maybe one Fire Ice can be lethal here. So I go for the Bloodbraid Elf. I resolve uh, a Territorial Cavu, +1 to my Shardless, attack with 2, two creatures, which means they can't go for the whole of the gemstone. But yeah, I guess they were playing the Leyland buying after all, so they get their Solitude back, trade with my Shardless. It just didn't, nothing worked out for me actually at this game. So if I suspended those footfalls, I would have to counter the footfalls right now, and I would resolve my General Affairs Rokiric in this situation, which would be very good for me because I would draw into Violent Outburst and get my tokens, which would then win me the game. So it was just a few bad decisions. I didn't play bad. I played decent, but just a few borderline decisions. And my opponent played Memory Deluge and got like best three cards in the world with those. They get Leyland Binding, they get Chalice to counter my Crashing Footfalls, and they also got a counter spell for my General Rokiric. So it was just a crazy Memory Deluge. Like it felt like my opponent is choosing which cards to draw each turn. They had crazy good top decks. I still had Fury in my hand, which is kind of close a very good threat because my opponent is on 6 life at this point. But they have another Solitude, which is just very good, very good cards on top of the opponent's deck. Opponent plays the Kahira, so now they're able to stabilize, attack with Solitude, Vigilance, Lifelink, and I have nothing at this point, just a land. I go for the Fire Ice to kill the Kahira. They don't have a lot of these win conditions, so I was attempting to slow them down, but I didn't get anything. So I concede here. It was time for I get another land, so I just had two lands in hand at this point, and the game was over. Okay. Playing first in game two, much easier, especially when you have Fire Ice. Fire Ice is such a good card in this, not just in this matchup, but in this deck general. It's just very good. Turn 2 Ice into turn 3 Cascade Spell wins so many games. Okay, so I go for, of course, Ice at the land. I have the Cascade Spell in my hand I need, so I have everything. Um, my opponent has one island untapped, so it's much better to cast a General Affairs anyway, and it's the strongest play I have. So I just go for, I play my land, attack for 3 to see if I'll have to use the Fire Ice, maybe if they go for a cycle to make a shark token. After, in the second main phase, I play my Ardent Plea, gets 2 Golem tokens, they counter Kavu, but it doesn't matter, I get the Golem tokens anyway. I have now 3 Fire Ices in hand, so I can attack with everything. Um, the opponent plays the Memory Deluge again. I ice their land and then ice their other land in the draw step, so they can use the mana from the upkeep. I get Force of Negation in hand, and my opponent can't play Supreme Verdict in this situation where I iced both of their lands. So okay, so my opponent just bought a Kahira into their hand. So in this situation, they obviously have double Solitude because they would concede if they don't have it. So if I attack with Golem tokens, they would Solitude both of my Golem tokens, and I would deal 3 damage to them. And attacking with just General Phase Rokiric, getting the Exalted was better for me in this situation because I could keep them at 2 life. So in this situation, this meant that they have to go for Solitude on one of my tokens and then Solitude, their Solitude to gain life to live this turn. My opponent goes for the dress down, doesn't find anything that saves them, and it was the game. Okay, so now we can go for the game 3. Sorry, what happened? Okay, so this was game three of only loss in the league, and it was just incredibly unlucky. I had a very good starting hand, a Leyland binding in case they have Chalice of the Void. I had good lands, Xander Lounge and Temple Garden. I had the General Ferris, Violent Outburst, Titan Plea, a lot of cards, good cards here. But just unfortunately, I even got the Fury in case they go for the Teferi. I can try to kill it. But just wasn't first. I wasn't able to get my third land, not on the turn three, and then again not on the turn four, and just this just put me back miles back, but still it wasn't game over. My opponent's deck is so slow that I still have a chance. They didn't have a Chalice or Teferi, which are the best cards against me. So okay, so if I just Leyland binding this Shark Typhoon now, I would win the game. That's like pretty sad fact. I, again, turn five still didn't get the third land went through 13 cards in my library. My opponent goes for the second Typhoon. I decide to take their shark, just not discard the card. So I go for the another Crushing Footfalls, and finally turn 6 I get my third land so I can start casting my spells. Opponent goes for the Solitude. In this situation I decide it's best for me to try to resolve the Violent Outburst. If I played the Violent Outburst before their Solitude ability, I would gain one more life and I would not lose the game. So a lot of these situations just decided the game and I lost because of it. Maybe I should have just boarded out all cows, but the game just goes so long that if I board all cows out, eventually I just won't have targets to cascade into. Okay, my opponent goes for the double block. Maybe I should have waited also for this, but I decide to attack anyway. And when my opponent played the dress down, I decided to play the outburst. So I get the golem tokens. If my opponent goes for this dress down is on the field and they kill it, I can't get my golem token. So that's why I decided to go for it. My opponent goes scry on upkeep, so obviously they don't have nothing and I have kill next turn. And they put card on top, so they probably found what they were looking for, and that was obviously Supreme Verdict, which was definitely best draw for my opponent. At this point, my opponent has 3 minutes 40 seconds left on their clock, and I still have a very good hand. General Ferris with Shardless and Force of Negation in hand. My opponent goes to, unfortunately, goes to Hardcast Shark Typhoon. I have to counter this. So I just go for attack for 3, cycle my Indata Triumph, play the Windswept Heat, and this is where I got a bit less patient, and I decided I was just agitated by this draw of Wooded Foothills, so I decided to hardcast my Fury, which was terrible decision. It just enabled my opponent to cast their Solitude and start attacking me, so it was just a terrible decision. It was just a terrible decision. Also, it was definitely. Maybe I should have just traded with the Solitude there. Of course, another terrible draw in Plains, and they obviously wouldn't have Tavara my general if they didn't have the counter spell. Next turn, my opponent goes forward, Kahira, and attacks with Vigilance. Now have two good attackers. I draw a card with the Fairy, bounce Leyline Binding, take their Solitude, and my opponent plays the Leyline Binding. If I just, again, if I just blocked this Kahira with General, I would win the game. I was now on 6 life, and my opponent wouldn't have enough time to kill me. With this Kahira, I should have just traded with General when I think about it in retrospective, but I kind of wanted to win the game. My opponent plays another Solitude just so they can attack with it, and so now I'm forced to trade. But if I traded with the turn before, I would be on a 3 more life now in this situation. So I would now be on 6 life and not 3 life, which means I would get another turn, and maybe even clock wind would be in an option, and I would also get one more turn to try to top deck a card. I don't know what, I forget what, I think I had a very good card on top. I tried to draw a card when I was in the game, and very good card was on the top. I can't remember what exactly, but okay, so that was the loss. And the entire league was just a very strong matchups. One Murktide, two Rhino matchups. A lot of games were pretty interesting, uh, and you could really see just how strong is it to resolve this General Affairs Rokiric on turn 3 on the empty board. Once you do it, it's very hard to lose the game. It's just it's been so often in those situations that I can remember even if I ever lost, maybe once or twice. And unfortunately, I feel like I just had a series of few minor mistakes, fails in this last game against against Blue White Control, which costed me the trophy in the last league with this deck. But it is very strong. I just got multiple 4-1s in a row. Uh, each time very close to the trophy. It wasn't in a few of those times. It wasn't the deck's fault. It was just some of those minor mistakes adding up. And okay, that was it. That was the entire league. I think it was pretty fun. A deck feels pretty brutal. I think it definitely wouldn't have that much of a grind potential if I didn't have Cowls in the deck. And you could see once the General Ferris Rokiric is on the field, uh, cascading into Cabo doesn't matter because it's even better to cascade into Cabo in those situations, and that's the real payoff for this, playing general in this deck. That after you resolve it, it's very hard to kill it, and at that point you don't care if you're cascading into Cabo or you're cascading into Rhinos. Whatever you get, it's great. So that is the real deal, and list just feels good. And this General Ferris Rokiric is just very good right now against these top tier decks. And that's it for today's league. See you in the next video. Okay, that's all for now. Goodbye.